Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. Welcome to our training today on steps to a successful closing. Guys, my name is Robert. Thank you so much for joining us. And as you guys know now, we are recording our session. And you guys, if you want to watch the same class again, you can always go to our YouTube channel. I just shared the link with you in the chat. This is a really important step to our transaction, of course, is the actual closing. So we are going to review lots of things. We're going to review an extension to a closing. We're going to review the closing statement. We're going to review the closing disclosures. We're also going to review the warranty deed and the steps to you guys closing out the transaction with our office and, of course, getting paid. If you have any questions throughout our presentation, please feel free, unmute yourselves, ask questions. You can also send me a question in the chat. All right, so by now, by this step of the process, you've already completed most of the transaction. You've already submitted an offer, an inspection has already occurred, and the loan approval has already taken place, and an appraisal has been done, and you are now clear to close, right? And of course, once you're clear to close, then you're going to proceed to the closing date. And at the closing table, you either will go with your client, or if it's a remote closing because your client is not in town, then something like a remote closing can be set up. You have to check with the title company if that's the case. Closings usually take place at the title company, or it could take place at our office. Closings can take place between two title companies. The seller can have their own title company, and the buyer can have their own title company, or the seller chooses to just use the buyer's title company to do the entire process and paperwork. Guys, I cannot stress this enough. We need to communicate always with the title companies. So once you have a contract that is accepted and it's executed, you need to alert the title company and give them all the details, give them the contract, and give them all the disclosures that were signed. You need to give them your client's contact information. Of course, you need to tell them the lender, and also forward us all the information as well. You want to forward our transaction coordinator the information. You want to copy me so I can assist you throughout your transaction. All right, so I see that there's a few questions here in the chat already, or not. It's just good mornings. Good morning to you all. All right. So I am logged into Form Simplicity because I do want to show you something this often occurs, where you are now at the closing date, pretending that the closing is scheduled for today. However, we have not yet been cleared to close. Then you're going to have to extend the closing date. The way that you're going to extend the closing date is by opening up an addendum to the contract. So when you go to Form Simplicity and you go to the blank forms, you'll see an addendum to contracts. It's in alphabetical order. It's the first document in your library. And we're going to go ahead and open it. And I'm going to show you how to prepare an extension to a closing. All right, it's very simple. Depending on how many addendums you've already created in your transaction, you're going to put that number there. Let's pretend that this is the first addendum. And let's pretend that this contract was signed back on October 9th. All right, so the date that goes here is the effective date. So the date that the contract was signed and it became effective, that's what you're putting here. Okay. Then, of course, you're going to put in the name of the seller. Let's go ahead and just put in here LeBron James. All right. We're going to use basketball players today. And then I'm going to put in here Michael Jordan as the buyer. All right. So LeBron James, Michael Jordan are the sellers and buyers. The property address, of course, you're going to go ahead and put in the property address. And then right here in the space provided, this is what you're going to write. Seller and buyer agree to extend, all right, the closing date until Today is what, the 20th. We're gonna go ahead and just put in here until November 25th. I don't know. All right, and then we're gonna go ahead and enter, and then you're gonna put in all other terms and conditions of this contract remain the same. All right, so you're gonna type that in as well. All right, so once you have this completed, then of course you're gonna go ahead and save it, and you're gonna get your buyers to sign it, and you're gonna send it over to the listing agent if you represent the buyer. If you represent the seller, then the buyer's agent is gonna have this signed, and they're gonna send it to you, so you can then give it to your seller. This must be signed and this must be done before 12 a.m. So you have until 11:59 p.m. today to get this extension in, and we are not out of contract. If for some reason the day slips by and you are now tomorrow, you are now outside of the contract. Okay. Can it still be closed? Yes, you can, run an emergency addendum to extend it, but you don't want to have that done. You want to go ahead and prepare an addendum extending the closing date. And, if both seller and buyer have cooperated and everything, and it's just an issue with either the lenders or the title company, that's okay. It can, we should just extend. Okay. So any questions on the addendum, how to prepare an addendum, and how to extend a closing date? Okay. Nope. All right. Let's go ahead and close that out. And I am going to share a few documents with you now. We are going to first take a look at closing disclosures, and we're going to let you know what the closing disclosures are and when they are going to be given to your buyer. All right, so let me go ahead and close this one out here. And I'm going to open up a folder and open up the closing disclosures. So give me 1 second, guys. All right, so when you represent the buyer is going to, give me 1 second here. I need to share this with you. All right, so when you represent the buyer and the buyer is going, to purchase the property and have a loan, they're gonna get first a closing disclosure. This closing disclosure can be given to them as soon as the loan application is approved. That is an estimate of what their mortgage is going to be. This is prior to any other fees that are going to be added at closing and insurance and taxes and everything. So this is an estimate or a loan estimate or closing disclosure that's going to be given to your buyer after the loan application has been approved. And it's also going to be given to your buyer about 3 days before closing. Your buyer, of course, is going to review this. Now, your buyer may not know how to review this, and they may depend on you to help them review it. That's fine. They can send you a copy, and you guys can review it. So it's basically the loan terms. So, for example, on this transaction here, was back in 2021. The loan amount was 409,000 at a very nice interest rate of 2.75%, with the monthly principal and interest being $1,671. All right, so going through all of this, they're going to read, and then it's actually going to tell them all the different fees that are going to be applied towards the closing costs. And this was an FHA loan. So there is an upfront mortgage insurance premium here through FHA of $7,000. So those of you that have buyers and are using FHA, just know that there is going to be an upfront cost to that loan, and it's going to be paid in closing. So that's why their closing cost is going to be a little higher than the norm. All right, so the closing cost estimates here are $15,783. And then there's other costs here, guys. You'll see the final numbers in the closing disclosure. This is the closing disclosure, but this is not the final. So you'll see them in the final. All right, you're also going to see right here the estimated commissions that are going to be paid to each brokerage. So the buying brokerage and the selling brokerage, and you see the commissions there. And then this is actually going to study right here the transaction of the borrower. So the closing costs in total and all the different fees that are going to be charged to the buyer, all the different fees that are going to be charged or credited to the seller are on the right-hand side column. So you got borrower's transaction and seller's transaction as well. All right, and then it's actually going to go through some of the debts as well. No, this is the wrong document. Uh, this is a preliminary closing disclosure. All right, let me go ahead and open a new file to show you something here that is important as well. Give me 1 second here while I open it. Sorry about that, guys. Give me 1 second. Where's my folder? Where's my folder? Here it is. All right. Let's open this. And there you go. All right. So when you guys get ready to close, they're going to send your buyer and they're going to send your seller a preliminary closing statement. That's also known as the ALTA statement. So whenever you hear the term ALTA, for all of you who are new realtors, that's actually your closing statement. This is a statement you will need to close out any transaction, and this is the combined ALTA statement. So the closing statement is going to be sent to your buyer. They're going to review it. And of course, you as their representative, you're going to also review the closing statement. The seller is also going to receive the closing statement. And notice it's a combined closing statement. So you'll see it over here, combined. And it's going to itemize the cost of the sale to the seller and to the buyer. All right, so let's take a look here. We have the closing statement, we have the seller's debit and credit, and we have the buyer's debits and credits. And it's learn to read this, guys, learn to identify it. Your buyer may have questions and they may rely on you to answer these questions. So this is an important document that you may want to learn how to read. And this is why we're going to go over it line by line. All right. So taking a look here, we have the sales price of the property, 427,500. And the entire 427.5 is a credit to the seller and it's a debit to the buyer. Okay. Now, this document is going to be sent to you about 3 days before closing, so you can review it, or even 24 hours before closing, so you can review it. And then you can get to the closing and, not have many questions, right? I mean, you have an opportunity right now to question anything on this document before you actually get to closing, just in case the title company made a mistake. All right. So taking a look here, we have your deposit. So this property was purchased with a deposit of $5,000. That is a credit to the buyer. All right. And then there's the loan amount of 409,543. That is a credit to the buyer. Right here, we have some HOA dues. So if there is an HOA, they're going to prorate. Of course, this property was purchased on 4/28. So there was only just 3 days left in the calendar month. So there is a debit of $15 that's going to be added to the closing costs of the buyer. And then you have here the non-ad valorem taxes between 4/28 and September 30th of $206. All right, that's going to also come out of the closing costs from the buyer. There's a credit of the property taxes from January 1st through April 27th. Remember, the buyer starts to pay taxes on the day they close. So they closed on 4/28, and that's when they start. So the credit coming from the seller is $1,319.43. You'll see it over here, debit to the seller, credit to the buyer. All right, so here we have a loan origination fee from Quicken Loans. This is also known as points, right? Whenever you hear how many points is being charged. So Quicken Loans in this case charged $4,025 in loan origination fees. And that's also going to be debited from the or added to the closing costs of the buyer. You have the appraisal fee, $570. All right, in this case, the appraisal was added to the closing costs. In some cases, the appraisal fee is paid up front, and you should see that number over here on the right-hand side as a credit because it's not going to be charged at closing. It's going to be paid up front. In this case, it was paid or it was included as part of the closing cost, so $570 on the left-hand column. Credit report fee, flood certification fee, all these fees, including the mortgage insurance premium of $7,043. That's also added to the closing cost for the buyer. All right, so learn about MIP, learn what that means and why it's being charged. This was an FHA loan, 3.5% down. I believe it was 5% down, 5% down. And, you obviously have a mortgage insurance premium. All right, so we have here homeowners insurance for 3 months. All right, so that's going to be prepaid. You got property taxes for 8 months. So from April 28th through the end of the year, the taxes are going to be estimated at $368 per month. And that's a total of $2,944.08. That's also part of the closing cost. So guys, whenever you're trying to provide guidance to your buyers, how much is closing going to be? You can pretty much estimate another 3%. So let's say, in this case, the property is $427,000. You can estimate somewhere around 3% because there's going to be prepayments, right? They're going to prepay the taxes for 1 year. They're going to prepay the insurance as well for 1 year. Okay. This is in a flood zone. So they had to prepay $294 in flood zone insurance or premiums. And then here are the title fees. Now we use Marina Title here at Elite Ocean View Realty. You can use any title company you want, but if you want to use Marina Title, they have their own fees. Every title company has similar fees. Some are a little higher than the others. All right, but these are the fees for the title. Here we have government and recording fees, miscellaneous fees. The homeowner's insurance premium was $3,400. That's also part of the closing costs. All right, so take a look, guys. So we have $452,317 is what the total cost to the buyer to purchase the property. That's the price of the home and all of the closing costs. All of the closing costs are included. And then due from the borrower was 36,449. So the buyer in this case had to come up with 36,449 to purchase the property. All right, guys, this is your HUD statement. This is your closing statement. If you guys missed it, all right, the commissions that were due to the buying brokerage is $10,687. The commission that's due to the selling brokerage was $10,687. All right, I want you guys to know that there was a little difference in the preliminary closing disclosure that I showed you and in this one. Did you guys catch it? The selling brokerage and buying brokerage were set to make around 12,000 and change. So they dropped, it actually dropped to 10,687. The reason why is because there was a credit given by both selling brokerage and buying brokerage to make this deal work. All right. There was a credit. They lowered their commission. They helped the buyer, or in this case, they helped the seller because the seller lowered their sales price by $5,000, and they helped both the buyer and seller close the transaction. So you guys can do that. You know, if you're off by a few thousand, you may want to negotiate with the seller agent, or if you are the buying agent, you want to negotiate with the listing agent. Hey, you know what? If we contribute, we may be able to make this deal close rather quickly. All right. Now this HUD statement is going to be signed by the buyer at closing, and it should already be signed, of course, by the seller, because the seller's usually going to sign first, and then you take your buyer. If you are representing the buyer, you take your buyer to the closing. This is going to be explained to them, and then they're going to go ahead and sign it. All right. We must get a copy of this closing statement in order to close out the transaction in our office. Of course, you want to also get the payment, right? So you want to get the payment. You guys want to set up payment prior to the closing. You can ask our help center for our wiring instructions, and you want to submit our wiring instructions over to the closing agent. So they can wire the compensation straight to our account. If you don't do wiring, then you're going to have to pick up a check that's going to be prepared by the closing agent, and you're going to give it to us. You're going to bring it into our office. You need the HUD statement. What is another form you'll need? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and open up another file here, and you're going to need a disbursement form. All right, guys, everyone here, even if you work with renters, you will use a disbursement form. So let me share that screen with you guys. This is the disbursement form, and this is pretty much how you should fill out a disbursement form. All right, so if you're brand new, you've never filled out a disbursement form, let's go ahead and review this. So every Monday, our help center sends an email to every one of our agents with disbursement forms, right? And the reason why we send you this disbursement form every Monday is so you never miss it, right? You know how to get it. It's there. It's in your email. So in this disbursement form, you're going to put your name and you're going to put the property address. You're going to answer whether this was a lead given to you by Elite or not. You're going to also mark whether it's a sales transaction or a rental transaction. And then right here, you're going to place the amount of compensation given to Elite Ocean View Realty, not your commission, but the total amount. So for example, guys, if you were in that closing and the compensation paid to Elite Ocean View Realty in the closing statement states that it's $10,675, then you are going to write here $10,675. You're not going to write what your split is. You're going to write the total amount. Okay. And then, of course, down here, it's going to be what? Wired to Elite Ocean View Realty, or was it in a check format? Was it mailed to us? Did you drop the check off at one of our offices? How was how was this collected? All right, we're going to skip the for rental section and go right into for sale, right? So right here, did any contribution occur? So let's go back to that transaction. If you contributed $2,000 from your commission to your buyer to make this transaction work, then you're going to place here that you contributed $2,000, all right, to the buyer. If you did not contribute anything, then of course you're going to place 0. All right, there is a question from Kenneth. So, Kenneth, this is in a PDF format, the disbursement form. Um, I have a Mac, right? And every time I open a PDF in my Mac, I am able to edit PDFs. So I'm not sure if you have a Windows machine and you open a PDF and you're able to edit PDFs, but I am able to plug in and write on a PDF directly from my Mac. It is not available in an electronic form. This disbursement form is always going to be given to you in a PDF format. You either have to print it and fill it out, or you can actually, from your computer, edit the form and not edit the form, but add to the form. Okay, hopefully that answers your question. All right, so again, right here, contribution, uh, whether you contribute it or not. Okay, and then are you using a mentor? You're gonna answer whether you're using a mentor, yes or no. And that's it. Sign it and then date it. This is a must. You must submit this when you close on a transaction, a disbursement form. Now, you're also going to need to submit a walkthrough inspection. So let me open that walkthrough inspection form. For any transaction, whether it be a rental or a sale, whether you represent the buyer or seller, a walkthrough inspection form must be submitted for you to close out the transaction. All right. So buyer name, seller name, the address of the property, items that were inspected. So when does a walkthrough inspection take place? In a purchase. We know when it takes place in a rental, the day that we're moving in, right? We go, we do the walkthrough, we hang keys, and the rental is finished. In a closing of a purchase, you want to do the walkthrough either the day before or the morning of the closing. You want to make sure that everything is exactly how the buyer last saw the property, right? Because if the buyer saw the property 2 weeks ago and there was a refrigerator, there was an oven, and there was a washer and dryer, and you get to the inspection and the refrigerator is missing, then there's a problem, right? So inspecting all the items, making sure that everything is in working conditions. If there's anything that's not in working conditions and both buyer and seller agree to that, then place it over here. All right, things that are not in good or operable conditions. And then go ahead and have your buyer sign it down here that they agree to this and submit this walkthrough inspection to our office. When you close out on a file, we want to make sure that the buyer is in agreement or the seller has signed off on this as well. Okay, any questions on the inspection form? All right. So what occurs after closing? After closing, the keys are usually going to be given over to your buyer. And that's it. Congratulations, they're closed. You want to take pictures with them, whatever that may be. Now, a warranty deed is going to be provided maybe 24 hours after the closing, and it's going to be provided by electronic copy over to your buyers. The actual warranty deed that's going to be filed is going to also be mailed to your buyer probably within the next 30 days. This is what a warranty deed looks like. It's the actual title that's going to be filed on through the county, and it's going to talk about the sellers and the buyers here. For their privacy, I went ahead and I removed the seller and buyer, but this is where it would say the seller and the buyer. Warranty deed right here is going to be signed by the seller right here, Carmen Hernandez, seller. All right, and then the witnesses here. And of course, this warranty deed, I erased it, but this warranty deed up here says that Carmen Hernandez hereby transfers the deed of this property to the new buyers, and then you're going to have the buyers' names on it as well. All right, this is the warranty deed. It's going to be found inside of, in this case, Miami-Dade County Public Records, in the property appraiser's website as well. You can access warranty deeds yourself. It is public record. Anyone can go and download a copy of a warranty deed from online. All right, guys. So that's what a warranty. All right, sorry about that, guys. Please remain on mute, guys, at all times, unless you have questions and you want to ask questions. Okay, thank you. So now you close the transaction, right? You close the transaction. Everyone's happy. Everyone is now, moving forward. What needs to get done on the MLS? All right, what needs to get done on the MLS? Let me go ahead and share the screen, guys. I'm gonna open up the MLS here. All right, and what needs to get done on the MLS? If you represent the buyer, you want to make sure that the listing agent closes the file and they add you as the selling agent or the buying agent. In some cases, they may forget to do that, and now you don't receive credit for the sale. If you represent the seller, then you need to close out the listing yourself. And of course, you want to make sure that you give credit to the buying agent by adding them to the transaction. So I'm going to give you an example on how to close out a file. If you are the listing agent, okay, I'm going to open up this listing. It's the only one that I can really practice with. All right. And then I'm going to open it up here and we're going to pretend to close it out. Okay. I'm going to click on edit. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on close, change to close. Where is it? Change to sold. All right. So the closing date, the date that it went on pending, the intent of use. Is this going to be an investment property, their primary home? All right. You're going to place that there. The buyer origin or country of origin. So if they are from the United States, then of course you want to go ahead and add the United States. But if the buyer comes from another country, you want to add the country they come from. And then the buyer's current state. Are they residents of Florida or did they come from another state? Okay. Now it says here buyer's current zip code. You don't have to do that. It's not yellow. All right. What type of financing? All right. Was this a cash transaction? Was it FHA? In this case, in today's example, it was FHA. Was it conventional? All right. Was the property furnished or non-furnished? What is the sold price? So how much did the property sell for? Any seller contributions? All right. So did the seller contribute? Did the seller give a credit to the buyer at closing to make this deal happen? Okay. Any seller contribution? What was the seller contribution? You're going to put it on the right. And then, guys, very important, selling agent ID. So if you are closing this file out because you have the listing, it is your duty to come here and put in the license number of the buyer agent. You guys can always find the buyer agent here by selecting find a selling agent, and you can look up their license number by name. Okay. If you make a mistake in this and you close it out, submit listing, you close it out, the only people who can actually make a change now is the MLS themselves. So you're going to have to call the MLS and say, I made a mistake. I've seen people close out files by making a mistake on the sales price. Let's say the sales price was $427,000. They went ahead and put in for $42,700, or they put in $4.2 million. If you make a mistake and you actually submit the listing and you close out the file, the MLS is the only one that can change that. If you don't give credit to the buyer agent, right? If you don't give credit to the buyer agent and you give credit to yourself, if you enter your license number here because you were somehow confused that this is where your license number goes, then the MLS is the only entity that can actually go into the listing and change this to the actual buyer agent. That being said, guys, all right, let me cancel this. We're not going to close out this listing. That being said, if you represent a buyer agent and you notice that the listing was closed on the MLS and you were not given credit, then you will need to contact the MLS, provide them a copy of the closing documents, and let them know that you were the buyer agent, and the MLS will then go into the listing and change the buyer agent license. Okay. Any questions on everything we just covered today, guys? That's the steps to a successful closing. Of course, it is the final stage of the transaction. Everything should have already occurred. Inspection, appraisal, loan application, loan approval. Everything should be ready, clear to close, and those are the steps to take to close on a property. So any questions on this? All right, so we don't have any questions, guys. I am going to load this into our YouTube channel, so thank you so much. Reminder, guys, tomorrow, Friday at 10 a.m., we have a month-end meeting at our Coral Gables office. We have a monthly meeting every single last Friday of the month. Of course, being that Thanksgiving is next week, we went ahead and pushed it forward to this week. We will be covering working with renters and procedures and working with renter leads and closing out a rental transaction. So anything rentals. Those of you that are working rentals and you want to learn more, or you just simply want to meet with our colleagues and have a good morning at our office. That's going to be tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning at our Coral Gables office. We look forward to seeing you there. And yeah, that's it. Teo will be there, I will be there, and look forward to seeing you guys there. All right, guys. So thank you so much for joining today's course. And I want to wish everyone a great rest of your day. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Have a great day, everyone.